Imagine holding on to a grudge so deeply it consumes you. You go to bed thinking about it. You wake up thinking about it. You're brushing your teeth thinking about it. You think that this unforgivable act is something you're just going to have to overcome to absolve this person of their wrongdoings in order to forgive them. And then you'll finally have peace. But what if you got it wrong? Today, we have a completely new approach to forgiveness by forgiveness expert Katharine Giovanni, who teaches us how to forgive to reclaim our own happiness, our own internal joy, to let that grudge and all the darkness that comes with it leave our body so that we can be happy. And it's not about absolving anyone of anything. It is a process you can do today and you will do today on this episode to have more joy in your life. Let's rock. Welcome to the Good Mood Revolution. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill, and I've spent the last 15 years mastering the art of lasting happiness. Look, happiness isn't just a feeling, it is a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn and master. This show is your training ground. Let your Good Mood Revolution begin now. So anger and resentment and judgment, these are things that can destroy our happiness. I have been there. In college, I was one of the top students in my sales and business marketing program. I was the president of the organization. And my teachers would set me up with these interviews with great job opportunities. And people wanted to hire me. And my sister was somebody that I wanted to talk to as well about working in her financial planning business. And so I went and had an interview with her at her company. And I thought it went really well. And I thought that she'd offered me a job verbally. And so I started to say no to everybody who was offering me jobs. And I turned them all down. And I would tell them, I appreciate the opportunity. I've just committed myself to work with my sister and her company. Well, the week before graduation, my sister had rescinded her offer. And she said, I don't think you'd be a good fit for me in this company. And at that point, all of my job prospects had all found other people to work for them. This was 2001, and we were going through a dot-com bust, and we were in somewhat of an economic situation that was tough, and it was hard to find a job at that point. And so without any job prospects, I left Michigan, moved in with my brother in Colorado, and started to try to find a job with a fresh resume and a fresh being out of college and just being a young kid. And I could not find employment. Like, it was so bad. I was walking down the streets of Colorado trying to sell perfect pasta pots, walking door to door into businesses. Like, my job prospects were terrible. And I was blaming it all on my sister. Massive amounts of resentment, so much anger, so much hatred. Finally ended up getting the only job I could. It was working for a copy machine company, but not selling copy machines. I wasn't good enough for that. They didn't have a job for that. I was selling the recycled toner cartridges that went inside the copy machines. And I felt my station in life was so low after I had had so many high prospects. And again, I didn't take accountability for it. I didn't see any part in this that was my fault. I was a total victim, and it was all my sister's fault. And I held on to this anger and this judgment, and I did not forgive her. And finally, it was my mom. My mom sent me an article. It was just a one-page article on forgiveness. And she also recommended a book by Mitch Albom. It was The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. And in that book, Mitch said, anger is like a curved sword. You go to stab the person that you're angry with your sword of anger, but the sword is curved around and it stabs yourself in the stomach. You know, being resentful towards someone is like drinking a vial of poison and thinking it's going to harm them. You're only harming yourself. And so I knew at that point, and I was young, I was in my early 20s, I needed to put the anger down and I needed to forgive my sister. I didn't know how. What I decided to do was call her and take 100% responsibility and say, it was all my fault. And I recognize it was all my fault and that she was completely harmless in all of it. And I didn't believe that story, But it was a story that I decided I was going to tell. And I told her, you didn't do anything wrong. It was all me. I took 100% accountability for it. And she felt really good with that story. I also ended up feeling really good with that story too. And our relationship mended and it healed. And eventually I did recognize that, hey, maybe she had some part to play in it, but really 100% of my life is my responsibility. And I moved out of the selling toner cartridges job, moved into a real estate job. So once I started to take accountability, I started to take accountability for where I wanted my life to go. I moved out of Colorado, chose to move to Charleston. A few years later, I met my wife. My real estate career took off. We ended up having 4 beautiful kids. Our company was named one of the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies in the country. We were named the #1 place to work out of 470,000 companies in South Carolina. And so a lot of good things happened. And none of this good stuff would have happened had it not been for my sister saying I couldn't work with her. So in the end, it was a gift. But in the moment, it was something I resented. I don't know the formula on how to forgive. But thankfully, I know someone who does. And we have her here with us today. It's Katharine Giovanni. She is the author of the book, The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness. Katharine, welcome to Good Mood Revolution.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. I cannot wait to learn how to forgive. But first, let's talk about why should we forgive?
Everybody listening to this broadcast right now has seen the word forgiveness. They heard you talk about it. And 10 out of 10 people are now thinking about their unforgivable person. On a 10 scale, with 10 being a dumpster fire and 1 being really easy, everybody's thinking about their number 10. So when you tell somebody to forgive, they're looking at you dead in the eye and say, I don't want to. No, of course you don't want to, because you're talking about the unforgivable person. So in my world, you don't have to forgive the unforgivable. Stay with me. There's a lot of other things and people and places. And yes, I said places and things that you can forgive before we even get to that dumpster fire. So you save those people for last. The reason you want to forgive is because you want them out of your head. That's it. You want them out of your head, period. You're thinking about it. You're dreaming about it. You're reliving the memory. And here's the hard truth. They're not thinking about you at all. Isn't that awful? You want them to be as miserable as you, but they're living their life and they're going on and you're sitting miserable. So the bottom line is you want them out of your head, completely gone.
Yeah, and you and I share a quote that we both put in our books from Nelson Mandela. And in my book, I talk about the need to forgive. Nelson Mandela was wrongfully imprisoned for 27 years. Think about somebody taking 27 years of your freedom and putting you behind bars for no reason. Yeah. It would be very hard to forgive someone who took 27 years of my life away from my family, away from my children. And yet he said, as he walked out of that prison, if he didn't forgive, he would have stayed imprisoned in his mind with his hatred. And so forgiveness, it frees us, right?
It does. I can show you a visual. For everybody listening and not looking, head over to YouTube where you can see the visual. I'm holding an opaque coffee cup in front of me. So let's say this coffee cup is anger. Look at my body language. I can easily have a conversation with you. I can conduct my life. I can talk to people. It's easy. I got this. I can keep my anger off to the side. I'm superhuman. I can do this. The longer I hold on to this, the more it's going to take over my life, because eventually, now look at my body language. Now I'm using 2 hands to hold up the coffee cup, to hold up the anger. So now it's starting to cause me pain. And if I still don't release the anger, now look at my body language. I'm holding it in front of my face. I can't have a conversation with you. I can't see the new job opportunity. I can't do anything about my health. I can't talk to my friends. My friend circle has gone down. Why? Because who wants to talk to me? All I'm talking about is this horrible memory and all these things that people have done to me. So my friend circle is gone. So I may be going from your apartment to work to your apartment. And this is your whole world now. It's all I can think about. It's all I can say. So forgiveness is going to allow you to put the cup down. So now I can see the opportunities. I can see the new job offers like you did. You saw the real estate. You got out of that. You noticed the opportunity. You noticed the opportunity to meet your wife. You can live again. You might lose some weight or get some money. There's a reason to buy the book. It's a question of being able to pay attention to the world around you and becoming the person you were always meant to be.
Yeah, and that was exactly my experience. And it wasn't until I gave up the anger that my life could actually start to move on. How do you recommend that people let go of these things where somebody says something rude and makes them feel bad?
Mental gymnastics. There are some people out there that have a nasty habit of not staying forgiven, especially if they're family members or somebody that you see all the time. So what people don't understand is you can forgive the person and you can forgive the memory and you can forgive the energy. Einstein proved that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just transforms into something else. So when you get angry, you assume that your anger goes out of your mouth and out of your body and dissipates into the universe. Nobody really even gives it a second thought, do we? But it doesn't. It stays in your energy field to the point where you're like the coffee cup. It's just all anger. So when I forgive people, even the easy ones, I will forgive the person, the energy around the person, myself, the energy around myself. And that's how you can get these people to stay forgiven. Now, a few points that everybody wants to know. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. I probably don't.
Oh, I definitely don't want a relationship with that lady.
Yes. And then the second thing is, just because I forgive you doesn't give them a pass. It doesn't mean they were correct. It just means I want you out of my head. I want to be able to look at your name on a piece of paper and I don't want to feel anything. I don't want the memory to come popping back up again. I want it gone. When I see your name, I don't want to just silently shoot arrows out of my eyes. I don't want to be happy. I don't want to be sad. I just want to be neutral. So forgiveness is selfish. You do it for you. You do it because you're the prisoner. You want to be free of it. But it doesn't mean they were right. Now, what if you can't forgive the person? Let's use a horrible example like rape or something like that. That's fair. If it's an unforgivable act, it may not even be appropriate for you to forgive. I get that. And some people can't forgive themselves. Some people can't forgive their parents. There's some unforgivable stuff. So I want you to pick things out around the memory. So if it's your parents, for example, you can forgive your childhood home. You can forgive the table, the bed. You can forgive the chair. You can forgive the building and the energy around all these things. And that should lighten up your field enough that you can actually move forward. I was bullied in school, terribly bullied. I forgave the bullies. I forgave my parents. I forgave 1974. Why did I forgive 1974? Because it was a horrible year. That's the year my parents, they were alcoholics. They got a divorce. I was getting bullied and I tried to commit suicide. So I forgave all the people in that year and the energy around it. And then I forgave the year itself and the energy around the year. And you would be amazed at how much better you will feel as you move through your list of people, places, and things from 1s to 2s to 3s that you're going to feel a lot better.
The wait is finally over. The Good Mood Revolution book is officially available for pre-order on Amazon today. You can go to Amazon and look for Good Mood Revolution book. And in this book, you're going to find the 8 bad moods that get in the way of your happiness. You're going to learn strategies on how to overcome each of these 8 negative thoughts. They're all lies anyway. And then what the thought patterns are that make us happy every single day. You're also going to learn strategies that can make you really feel fulfilled in your life and make other people around you feel fulfilled as well. So go on Amazon, look for Good Mood Revolution book, and order yours today. Self-forgiveness is really a key because, you could have been holding on to thoughts that maybe you should have been tougher or that maybe you should have been standing up for yourself more and not forgiving yourself for being maybe what you consider to be weak or whatever. Right. You were doing the best you could. but there could be part of you that say, I could have done better. It's not true. You were doing the best you could. But sometimes we need to forgive ourselves. And sometimes we hurt other people. I certainly have.
Forgiving yourself is the hardest person to forgive.
Yeah, it is. It is. We don't think we deserve it.
No, usually not. I do have science to back this up. One study, and I apologize to you ahead of time. I can't pronounce this gentleman's name to save my soul, and I've been trying for weeks. It's the Japanese researcher. If you Google this, I promise you'll find it at your first tryout. Japanese researcher who studied water.
Oh,
okay?
yes.
His
I
name
love
is
this study.
Masumoto, maybe.
Yes.
Something like that.
You nailed it. Good job.
I'm going to dumb this down really, really far, but do search it out because the pictures are absolutely phenomenal. He studied water, and one container of water, for example, he said these beautiful things to. He treated it well. He said loving. He told it he loved it, and he put it in the sun type of thing. The other container of water, he said horrible things. He said he hated it. He did all these horrible things to it. Then he put it under a microscope. The water that he put under a microscope that got the negative energy from him had these brown and black crystal formations, really ugly, like they were sick. And the water he spoke love to had these beautiful snowflake-like crystalline formations. The pictures are right on Google. Why am I telling you this? Your body is 98% water. So when you're saying bad things about yourself, or you're angry at somebody and you're spitting out all these hateful memories and you're thinking about it and you're living it, what do you think it's doing to the water molecules in your body? This is why people say anger is toxic. It's because it's turning the molecules in your body into these horrible black and brown formations, and it's literally making you sick. So by saying loving things, by forgiving people and releasing that energy, you're literally changing the water molecules in your body, and you're making yourself healthier.
Okay, well, let's continue to move forward in your process. So we start by forgiving places and dates and times and easy things. Another thing, when I was wrapped up in anger and unforgiveness at that same time, I remember being in Colorado and I had road rage.
Oh.
And someone would cut me off and I'd say, oh, no, not today. You're not going to cut me off today. And so I'd fly up and ride right behind their bumper. And, I'd drive by them and I'd flip them off. And how dare they cut me off like that? Who did they think they were driving like that? But the anger was so high in me that any perceived slight would send me off the handle, right?
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we start to remove that anger from us, then someone can cut us off and we can have a lot of compassion that, oh, they must be running late. I just didn't have the ability. I was too full of anger to let something like that go. So what do you recommend when somebody does kind of get triggered easy and they're having a hard time with everyday interactions like driving a car?
I think you have to be kind to yourself. And the road rage, when you're making your list, I'm going to ask you in the book, and I've got worksheets in there and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to ask you to make a list of people, because we start with people, don't we? And I want you to make a list, and then I want you to number it from 1 to 10. And the road rage thing, I'm thinking that's probably going to be like a 6, maybe a 7. You're going to probably want to put 5, 6, 7, something like that. And I want you to do this almost every night before you go to bed, because your body heals itself when it's sleeping. So I would say, in the moment, if you can recognize that you're in the middle of a road rage, I have been known to say, and I'm actually as serious as a heart attack, if something like that happens to me, I'll go back I will immediately notice it, because I've been doing this a long time. And I will immediately just say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And I'll just say that 100 times. And then I will go, when I go to bed that night, I will put it on my list, and I will forgive the person, the energy around the person. I'll forgive the car. I'll forgive the energy around the car. I'll forgive the highway. I'll forgive myself. I'll forgive the thoughts, the energy around my thoughts, to see what I'm doing. I forgive the entire memory. And then I want you to check in on how you feel. Are you still angry? Is there still any emotion there? If there is, what's your number now? It was a 7. Did you move it down to a 6? Maybe you could move it down to a 5. If you could move it, great. Do it again in 24 hours. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You can get your 10s and your 9s and your 7s. You can move it down to 1 where you can easily toss them, but it's like an onion, and it's going to take a couple passes, because as you forgive these people, your brain is going to say, great. And you're going to open up another vault in the back of your head, and more memories are going to pop out. It's going to happen. Things you haven't remembered. So that's when the memories come up. So you think, okay, well, I'm going to forgive my childhood home. I'm going to and I don't want to forgive my parents. Okay, so I'm going to forgive the things around it. I'm going to forgive a memory where they were yelling at me and my siblings didn't do anything. Okay, so I'll forgive the siblings for not jumping in to help me. I'm not forgiven my parents yet, but I'm in that one memory and thinking, well, I can forgive my sister because she didn't jump in and, defend me, and I'll forgive the energy around that.
Yeah,
then in 24 hours or a week later, you go back and you pick out more things that you can forgive.
This sounds like a lot of work.
And it is
a lot
easy.
of work. But why you want to do this is because what we really want is happiness.
Exactly.
Everything you do is to be happy. If you're listening to this podcast, you're doing it because you want to be happy. If you're going to a certain restaurant, you're doing it because you want to be happy. You're making money in your career because you think it's going to make you happy. Everything we're doing is for a feeling. We're trying to feel something good. And we can't feel that unless we do this deep, deep work on forgiveness that Katharine is teaching us to do. It's not easy work. And it takes a lot of effort.
You want joy. I will ask people all the time, and I know you've probably asked the same question to people when you're chasing happiness. And I love you. I mean, people are chasing it. But what are you really looking for? You're looking for joy. So I will look at people and say, what brings you joy? Not momentary happiness. I can get a hot fudge sundae and I'm as happy as anybody in the world.
I love a hot fudge sundae. Oh, it's so good.
Yes. It's momentary.
That's pleasure, right?
It's
momentary
a momentary pleasure. And then you're snapped back to reality. So what brings you joy? Joy is permanent. Joy is this big, huge thing. And 8 out of 10 people, they stop and they just kind of look at me, and crickets start to chirp, and they say, well, I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what makes me joy. This method, and starting with the easy ones, is going to help you so much, because the easy ones are easy, and you're going to start to feel better, and you're going to have these moments of happiness, and you're going to have these moments of joy. And that's going to be enough to keep you going, where you can find some permanent joy that Matt is talking about.
I want to define it. So if you're listening to this episode, Katharine's just asked a very important question. What gives you lasting joy? My experience is that joy is our natural state of being.
Yep.
And when we remove the negative emotions and the negative thoughts away and do this hard work we're talking about, and we pull the anger out, and we pull the shame out, and we pull the guilt out, and we pull out all the hurt and all the sadness, and we absolve it all, and we forgive it all, and it's all neutral. What we're left with is a feeling of joy. You could be sitting on your chair looking out the window and have immense feelings of joy that you get to be alive. You could just be breathing. You could be breathing and say, oh my gosh, this present moment I get to breathe is such a beautiful, wonderful present moment. And that's what happens when we do this deep work. And we get rid of the cup of anger that we're holding and has consumed our whole life. Is that what we find is that underneath all of those lies of upset is just a constant feeling of joy. And that's what the Good Mood Revolution is all about, is figuring out how do we pull these thorns out. Are you looking to take your happiness to another level? If you're looking to be more successful, we need to be happier, because success and happiness go hand in hand. But sometimes we get stuck in thought patterns we don't even know are holding us back. And we need a coach or a mentor to see things we can't see with our own eyes. I've had coaches and mentors help me access levels of happiness I couldn't have achieved without them. I'm now offering that same service to a small, select number of people. If you think one-on-one coaching could elevate your happiness, go to mattoneil.com and click the coaching tab to learn more. I look forward to talking with you. I know you had a tough time with your upbringing. How did you ultimately forgive the unforgivable? I'm sure you've forgiven your parents for being alcoholics and for the treatment that they gave to you and the pain that they gave to you. How did you forgive the unforgivable?
Well, the first thing I did with my parents is I picked out memories, and I forgave the memories and the energy in the memories. I forgave my childhood home. I forgave the dining room table where my father used to lecture me. And I forgave, remember, I'm not forgiving my parents yet. I'm just forgiving the other players in that play. I'm forgiving the understudies and, all the other characters in my mind. And then I'm not a very religious person, but there is one passage in the Bible that eventually got me there. Jesus is nailed up on the cross and he looks at, he says, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And what he's saying is, in my opinion, he's saying, I can't, if you're 5 years old and you haven't learned algebra yet, I can't get mad at you because you haven't learned algebra. You haven't learned it yet. So my parents did the best they could with the tools they had at the time. Was it good enough? Of course not. But they did their best. And through some mental gymnastics, I was able to get that 10 down to a 9. And then I would do it again. I would think of more memories and I would pick out some other things. And then I would got it down. By the time I got it down to a 4 or a 5, I was ready to really focus on the individual. And once I started focusing on the individual, I was assaulted with some more memories. And so I would go back and I would forgive the memories. It took me weeks to get my parents down to a manageable level where I could finally toss the anger, shall we say. It took a while.
Wow. Yeah, I love your process. I think it's beautiful. And just you saying that quote from Jesus as he's on the cross, I got emotional just thinking about it. Like, this is a guy that's being killed. And at the moment that he's being tortured and killed, he is saying in that moment, please forgive these people. They don't know what they're doing. And I love the way you related it to, if they had known better, they wouldn't have done it.
No, they wouldn't have. But they hadn't learned it yet. He also said,
nobody taught them.
Walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Don't build a house there. Don't go there and have some lunch with somebody. Don't go there and say, oh, this is a nice valley. I think I'll stay a while. He said to walk through the darn place. So this is what anger is. Anger is that valley, and you want to walk through it. You want to forgive people as you go so you can get to the other side and you can get to that happiness and you can get to that joy.
Yeah, a lot of times people might wonder why. Why did I have to have the childhood I had? Did you ever have that moment where you wondered why you had to be born to alcoholic parents?
Sure.
What did you come up with?
If I hadn't had the childhood that I did, I wouldn't have learned what I learned. I wouldn't have gone through what I went through and had the experiences that I did, and you and I would not be talking today. I am a firm believer that the lessons that I learned gave me the fuel to get to where I am today. And I don't believe in failure. And I haven't believed in failure for 30 years. I don't. I think that you either win or you learn. And that's it. So if it doesn't kill you, you're learning. Listen, I am a breast cancer survivor. I had dinner with the Grim Reaper. And if you don't go home with the guy, it changes you. Right? So you either win or you learn. That's the thing. And trust me, I forgave cancer. I forgave the chemo. I forgave the chair. I forgave the radiation slab that I had to lie on. I forgave the surgeons. I forgave all of it. I forgave myself for getting cancer, although it was probably not my fault. I forgave all of it as I was going through it. And at the end of the day, that's what got me through. Yeah, don't go home with the Grim Reaper. It doesn't end well.
It might have healed you too.
It might have.
Yeah, the forgiveness may have healed you. as you were forgiving, it definitely was helping for sure. As you were talking about the water and getting your state into this beautiful state of forgiveness was definitely creating a better environment for your cells. And congratulations on your courageousness
Oh, thank you.
to go through that and to be on the other side. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Going back to your book, you've got something called the Forgiveness Matrix.
I do.
What is the Forgiveness Matrix?
The Forgiveness Matrix is the process that I'm talking about. It's a process of writing down all the people, places, and things that you can think of. You sit down, you get a quiet place, and you write down your list. Then I want you to label everything from 1 to 10. And then I want you to take things out in pieces. I want you to start with the 1s and 3s. And I want you to just do that for a week or two. Forgive the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s. Then I want you to move on to the next group, the 4 to 6s. And then you work on the 4 to 7s. And then you work on the last group, which is the dumpster fire.
8, 9s, and 10s.
Yeah, they're the tough
8,
ones.
9s, and 10s.
And that's the matrix. And it's a matrix of forgiveness. It's a matrix of love. It's a matrix of energy that's going to allow you to become your best self.
So I was at a conference. It was a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny conference. And I still hadn't fully forgiven my dad. And my dad was he was really manipulative and emotionally abusive. And it was a Jekyll and Hyde situation. You wouldn't know who was coming in the door if you said hi the wrong way, if he would fly off the handle and get in your face and shout and tell you how awful you were, or that he would be happy and you'd be in his favor that day. And it had nothing to, I started to try to be the perfect son all the time, but it was impossible because you couldn't win. And then like lots of, you're a piece of dirt and you're not going to be anything and you never are anything and all of that. And so I carried a lot of resentment for not having the dad I wanted. And I was at this conference and Tony did a meditation, and it was called your earliest memory meditation. And my earliest memory was like going to Disney, and I was 3 years old. And so I'm thinking of being at Disney at 3 years old. And
that's an early memory at 3.
Yeah. And I just remember being in the pool, and I remember them saying we had to get out of the pool because it must have been raining or something, but I didn't want to get out of the pool.
Didn't want to get out. Yeah. Typical 3-year-old.
And that was like the earliest memory I could find. And then Tony said, but you can remember something before that. And all of a sudden, flooding of memories of my dad being kind, like all of this stuff that I had fully repressed because I was just holding on to the resentment, probably to protect myself, knowing that all of the kindness he was showing me could be changed in a snap. So I suppressed all of the good stuff so that I would protect myself and be guarded around him for the rest of my life. But all of the good stuff came back and it flooded back to me. And it was a moment of forgiveness for me because I remembered that he wasn't all bad. And I got off of the meditation and I called him right away and I said, "Hey, Dad, I had all these great memories of you. And I realized that, you did love me in my whole life." And he said, "Of course I did." And that was like one of the first times in my life he'd ever said that he loved me.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And it was beautiful. And our relationship changed.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't change.
No, they never do they? It's a little annoying, but no, they don't.
He didn't change. He's still the same guy. He's still alive. But at that moment, I changed to where I didn't need to be so protective any longer. And I didn't need to hold on to all the hurt and the anger. And I had acknowledged that, hey, there were some good times too. And then I flew him to meet his grandchildren, and then we flew to see him. And it's the best relationship I think could ever be. So that's my final story of forgiving someone that was unforgivable.
But that's what happens. Oh, by the way, just a little side note, you can forgive dead people. It doesn't matter where they are or are not because you're forgiving for you. So it doesn't matter where they are, right? And when you do forgive, I can look back at my dysfunctional childhood and I can see the love there. Now, I can bring up all those horrible memories if you want me to, but there's no emotional attachment to them anymore. I can even spin them funny if I want to. There's no emotion behind my words. I'm not angry anymore. So I look back at my childhood and I can see the love. You looked back, you saw the love of your father. You can pick out these memories now that are actually kind of loving. Now, my parents have both passed away, but if they were alive, would this have changed them? Absolutely not. Which is mildly annoying. But you do change.
But we don't
yourself.
we don't need to change anyone else. If they want to change, they'll change. But the only one we want to change is us. Part of forgiveness for me was understanding how difficult it would have been to have been them.
Right.
And then understanding how difficult it would have been for my dad to have been raised by two parents that didn't offer him love, and that what he would have had to believe about himself, about how unlovable he was. And then understanding that, then he doesn't give me love because he can't, because he doesn't think he's lovable. And that helped me forgive too.
If you're told you're a piece of crap enough, eventually you're going to think, well, maybe I am. So I'm going to start behaving like a piece of crap.
I did.
I did too. I was that teenager that was draped in black, that everybody's like, that kid. That was me. And I did that for many, many, many years until I decided I was either going to die or live. I wanted to live. So I quit drinking and I cleaned up my act and I moved on and I started to forgive.
And now you're making the biggest difference in the world. And I love that you said in this podcast, you went through those things not because they were happening to you, but in a way they were happening for you.
They were happening for me. Doesn't make them any easier. And excuse my language, they still sucked.
I don't want to relive
the ceiling and say, I'm tired of being God's guinea pig. So could you give me a couple years off? So I've written a lot of books. Yes, I go through it and I usually put it in a book someplace, but darn it, stop.
But now it's beautiful. And now it's beautiful.
Yeah, now I think I've stopped being God's guinea pig, which
it's beautiful.
Thank God.
but so here's the thing. We don't grow in our comfort zone. We don't. We grow outside of our comfort zone.
That's annoying, isn't it?
I know. But when everything's going perfect, if we'd had the parents we always dreamed of, we wouldn't have become who we've become. And then who could we have helped? We would have said, oh, you weren't born with a silver spoon and everything you ever wanted, and two people had told you how great you were. Like, I can't relate to your struggle.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Right. So there are people that are going to want to learn how to forgive more. This has been such an important conversation. How can they learn more about how to forgive?
You can go to my website, and my first name is spelled very strangely, thanks to my mom. Thanks, Mom. Katharine Giovanni.com. You can also go to Amazon. I do understand not everybody likes to read, so I have the book as an audio book. It's on Audible, and it's on all the places. But the ebook, the audiobook, and the paperback are all available on Amazon.
And do you do any one-on-one counseling with people?
All the time. So you can sign up for one-on-ones on my website. I even have a summer special going on right now. So if you think you can't forgive, we could do a private session with each other, and I'll walk you through the process.
Katharine, thank you so much for coming on today. I have just loved it. I've loved all of it. But this is what I geek out on. This is what I love. So thank you for coming. And y'all, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode with Matt O'Neill.